Space law looks at not only how the satellite was launched up there.
Dr. Maria Pozza, Director of Gravity Lawyers, is a leading expert in space, cybersecurity, UAV and technology law. She's an internationally sought advisor and author of Risk Management in Outer Space Activities.
Hello everybody, today I am joined by Dr. Maria Pozza. Maria is the principal of Gravity Lawyers and she has extensive experience in private practice as well as in-house counsel. She's joining me today ahead of our in-house counsel lunchtime learning series, and I'm very pleased to advise that Maria is the chair for these sessions. So I have a few questions, Maria, and I really appreciate you taking the time to be with us today.
Pleasure, Rachel, and thanks ever so much for inviting me to have a chat.
So Maria, if I could just start off with my first question, what do you see as the top pressures for in-house counsel right now?
Kia ora, Rachel and Legal Wise team, and welcome everyone listening in today. Rachel, that's such a great question. There are so many pressures on our in-house legal counsel right now today, and they are many and varied. Look, for a lot of our in-house counsel, they're grappling with increasingly unpredictable landscapes. Our regulatory landscape in New Zealand, for example, is changing. And especially with global shifts, we're seeing a lot of change in data privacy laws, for example, AI governance, environmental, social, other governance areas such as ESG. These all mandate and require our legal teams to be agile, proactive, and onto it. So the overturning of the long-standing regulatory precedents that we might have used now has to change. We are seeing more pressures on legal counsel in the sense that they need to be able to keep on top of these changes, keep abreast of what's happening, and be able to ensure compliance with those changes at a quick level and across multiple regions. So when I think about some of the pressures on legal counsel, something that I reflected on is that legal departments, they're not really viewed that much anymore as cost centres. Now, I say this with a pinch of salt, Rachel, because I'm sure some businesses still view their legal teams as cost centres. But look, our in-house legal team, they're no longer just lawyers, they're strategic partners. And it's really important that a business understands this. And it really certainly means for in-house legal that we need to align our legal advice with the business objectives in order to help meet those timelines and give what it is that the business needs in order to enable innovation, but without compromising risk management or compliance. So look, Rachel, it's a great question, but there are a lot of pressures facing our in-house legal counsel right now, and that is the shift in their role. They're becoming more than just the lawyers. They're becoming strategic partners with a wider focus over a wider area of risk, compliance, regulatory, and all sorts of other areas. So thanks for the question.
So Maria, I'm just wondering, how do in-house counsel balance the expectations of being both a strategic business partner and also the guardian of compliance and legal risk?
A really fantastic question, Rachel. Thanks for that. Striking the balance is not easy because, of course, in-house counsel need to adopt a mindset that integrates both that legal insight as well as that commercial acumen. We've got to let the business do what it is they need to do, but we need to make sure that they're compliant. So in my mind, the goal is not necessarily to choose between risk management and business growth, but actually to enable both. Sometimes people see risk management, compliance, regulatory as a stop, or if you like, perhaps maybe a way in which we prohibit progress, and that's not true. I often like to think of these areas as enablers, because if we're smart about it and we look at risk management, we look at compliance, we look at regulatory, then we're really improving a product that maybe the business wants to develop to put out on the market, and we're really creating something special, compliant, and does exactly what it says on the box that it should do. So these aren't stopgaps, Rachel, they are enablers. And some of the other things that we need to talk about as well is when working as in-house counsel, one of the things that I like to ask is, how can we achieve the business objective while managing the risk? And that's quite a powerful question because you're reframing the issue at hand. You're looking at the problem from a solution perspective, not necessarily just the gatekeeper. Now, don't misunderstand me, Rachel. We are the gatekeepers, certainly, but we're becoming more and more of those solution providers as well. Taking on this sort of approach, i.e., how can we achieve the business objective whilst managing risk and insurance compliance and ensuring compliance, we're actually really building great trusting relationships with our business units because we're taking them on the journey with us. We might be saying to them, for example, look, if we do this in this way, it's going to cause us problems. However, if we do it in this way, not only are we going to be compliant, but we're going to have a really solid product. So again, this goes back to this idea that the in-house legal counsel's role is changing. It's no longer just legal, it's strategic partner. So really great question. Thanks, Rachel.
So Maria, this series features AI quite predominantly. How do you see AI changing the way in-house teams work, and what risks should lawyers watch out for?
Great question, Rachel. Look, Rachel, do you know what the term force multiplier means?
No.
I tend to view AI as a force multiplier. I like to think of the in-house legal team as a force to be reckoned with. But certainly when we're using AI, and if your organization permits, the use of AI, then we're certainly looking at a way in which we can multiply the force that we bring to the table. AI can have so many great benefits, but also it's got a lot of challenges. We probably all know what they are, but look, for the sake of just repeating it here, in my mind, AI could certainly be incredibly helpful with enhancing our efficiency, expanding capacity, because let's face it, we're always resource stretched, and it can help with some of that decision making. So just to give you an example, you might be using AI to assist you with reviewing a document. It might be that maybe you have a contract and maybe there's a comment back from the other side, or maybe there's a change in the clause and you think to yourself, crumbs, I'm just not 100% sure how this change will affect us. And maybe that's a role that AI could help you. It could be the opposite side, if you like. You could ask it, hey, why would you put this in place to in this contract in order to do something, or what do you think would be a strategic reason for this? And perhaps AI could be helpful in that way. Certainly AI can be helpful with risk analysis. Now, don't quote me on this, because I think there's still a lot more that AI needs to be developed within. But it could be that from a risk perspective, we might ask AI on a percentage basis, what do you think the likely percent of A happening and B happening? Yes, you'd have to build a very clear picture for the AI. You would need to give it some more information around those numbers and what it is you're doing. But perhaps we might see more development in that area where AI could be helpful for in-house legal. But some of the things, Rachel, that, I know a lot of in-house lawyers are concerned about, it's the confidentiality and data security. Look, when we use AI systems, we've got to be incredibly careful about personal information, commercially sensitive information that we're putting into the AI system, especially if it might be cloud-based or third-party platforms. So there are some concerns that we need to be very, very clear about with AI and be very careful about putting parameters in place when we do use it. And certainly accuracy and reliability. Look, it's getting there, but it's not quite there yet. There's still a bit of work left to go for AI. And also, I will say this, sometimes regulatory use of AI is not really that great at all. And again, it's probably an area that's going to be improved, but we do see errors. I'm sure you've probably heard from a lot of people, Rachel, where people say, AI hallucinates with regards to some of the answers it may give. Look, I'm not sure if that's the right term to be using. Certainly, it's not quite there yet. It's a powerful tool. I think if it's used carefully with parameters, and I know that a lot of organizations have already put around those sorts of parameters, then maybe it might be a useful tool for in-house legal teams.
I have an interesting question for you, Maria. If you're looking across these sessions, What skill set do you think in-house lawyers most need to develop over the next 5 years?
Great question, Rachel. Look, in-house lawyers are incredibly unique lawyers because, of course, they have to work across a broad range, a broad spectrum of issues, as well as more than just that pure legal angle. They look at risk, they look at compliance, they look at all sorts of things. So some of the skills that I think in-house lawyers are going to need to broaden, because remember, they've probably already got these skills, is certainly that tech fluency and AI literacy. I think that a lot of our in-house lawyers will need to become comfortable in using AI, especially as we see that technology developing more so. And I also think that maybe there's a place for a lot more automation in the day-to-day function of our in-house legal teams. There's certainly going to be a wider scope in the next 5 years for that ESG awareness. We're seeing a lot more companies face rising scrutiny over environmental, societal, and governance issues. And that's certainly an area where I think our in house legal counsel are going to play a really important role, especially when engaging in stakeholder engagement and communication over the compliance requirements that we're seeing more and more coming into play here in Aotearoa in New Zealand, as well as risk assessments. So, Rachel, I'm not sure if that answered your question, but what I will end with is that our in-house legal team already have a great set of skills. Over the next 5 years, we're just going to see them expand those. I can't see them developing anymore because they're already a unique set of lawyers.
So I have an interesting question for you to ponder, Maria, and that is, if you had one piece of advice for in-house lawyers to help them future-proof their role, what would that be?
Rachel, for our in-house lawyers, my advice would be keep doing what you're doing. You're doing a great job. Yes, the in-house legal function and in-house lawyer role is changing. Embrace the change. There is more requirement over us to become compliance experts, regulatory experts, risk experts as well. But embrace the change. It is going to be part of our strategic function as in-house lawyers. And I can see that becoming more and more important for the in-house legal role, Rachel. And certainly one thing that I will say is that I think that for the in-house legal team, you're going to see even more cross-functional fluency. Now, Rachel, I know you're thinking to yourself, what on earth does she mean by that? And what I mean, quite simply, is that we need to be able to better speak the language of our stakeholders. We need to be able to use their terminology comfortably, and we need to be able to take them on the journey for compliance, legal, risk, regulatory. By taking them on the journey, we're showing them that we're innovative as well, and we're here to support them and their business product, as well as the innovations that they wish to put in place for our business. So great question, Rachel.
So I'm going to start with a broad question. What do you hope attendees will take away from engaging with this series over the coming months?
I'm hoping they're going to take away lots, Rachel. If anything, I'm really hoping that they'll have fun listening in to some of our amazing experts that are going to be speaking throughout the webinar series. There's a lot that can be taken away from these webinars. Certainly a future readiness posture. I always learn something new from these webinars because, of course, sometimes the topics that we discuss might not necessarily be part of my day-to-day work. So, for example, we have a topic coming up that looks at investigation, so workplace investigations. Now, certainly, I'm sure that a lot of in-house lawyers, they may send out employment law matters or that sort of work to an external, which is absolutely fine. But sometimes knowing a little bit more about the process, about the types of things that are underway can be so helpful, especially when you are looking at processes and procedures as part of your in-house legal portfolio. So I'm hoping, Rachel, that our attendees get a sense of a toolkit for future readiness, something that will help them or at least provide them with some exposure over areas that maybe they hadn't considered before. And certainly, if they are very experienced in the areas that they're listening into, then maybe it will give them some new creative and innovative ideas. Thanks, Rachel.
Thank you so much for joining us today, Maria. I really appreciate the time that you've spent with us, just providing us with some of your thoughts and insights ahead of our in-house council lunchtime learning series. Maria, I'm so pleased to say, is going to be the chair for each of the sessions. So along with the experts that we have joining us for these sessions, we'll also be able to hear some more of Maria's insights. So thank you once again, Maria, and we'll look forward to seeing you during the series.
Thanks, Rachel.